Hiya, and welcome to The Spread, NESN's Football Picks Podcast. I am NESN.com's Mike Cole, joined, as always, and once again by Ricky Doyle, also of NESN.com fame. Ricky, how are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm not bad. For those of you tuning in to get our Super Bowl picks, I'm sure there are plenty with bated breath. Excited for that.
All anybody can talk about on the streets, you know.
You'll have to circle back next week. We figured we've typically taken this week off, kind of recharge. There's not a whole lot to talk about, but the people want to hear from
revolutionizing the game. There we go.
So this is going to be more of kind of a recap of conference championship weekend, a brief look ahead to the Super Bowl, kick some things around, get out of here nice and quick, just keep ourselves
knee-jerk reactions, if you will.
Yeah, keep ourselves sharp and limber, so we don't pull a muscle next week. The big enchilada will be next week. We'll really dive into. We'll make our picks. We'll address the total. We'll do props. We'll do silly stuff.
Sure. And if anybody knows us, they know that we'll probably contradict exactly what we say today next week. So
that's a fair point too.
Maybe you can do a little Venn diagram, compare and contrast when we actually give our picks. But we thought it was important to get on here and at least kick some stuff around because a lot came out of the weekend, obviously.
We also have to address the public at some point. There has been an outcry. Some pushback, some vocal pushback in some of the things that we said last week. So we will address that. I'm trying to think of some sort of reference to this person's work, but I can't.
You're usually pretty good about that.
I know.
Too,
I was just trying to think like some sort of the red elephant in the room.
Okay.
So that was right there the whole time. I should have been able to pick that one up. But all right, let's get into it. We'll start in the AFC. The Super Bowl is set. By the way, we get the Chiefs playing the 49ers. The Chiefs going back to the Super Bowl by way of an AFC Championship win on the road against Baltimore. Do we both lay the points here with the Ravens?
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I was much stronger in my conviction about that as the week went on. By the time the game rolled around, I honestly thought there was a chance that Baltimore was going to steamroll them.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
They just the opportunity never presented itself because the offense was barely on the field, it felt like. And that game played out exactly how the Chiefs wanted it to. So.
Yeah, which is it's weird, though. I think, I'm not saying you're guilty of this, and I think it is kind of what you're saying too, but like there has been a little bit of revisionist history already that the Chiefs completely wiped the floor with the Ravens in that game or dominated from bell to bell. The first half they ran it up and then they kind of ran away and hid.
It never felt as close as it was.
No. But I'm just saying, like, their first half performance was like, I know it's almost unfair to both teams at this point that we keep pointing to their comparisons to the Patriots, but that felt like peak Patriots with Brady at his best, Gronk. Like it was surgical offensively. The defense was really, really good, had a great game plan. They took advantage of boneheaded mistakes by the other team and just turned it into like an anaconda grip. Like the thing was over.
So not to get ahead of ourselves, but like, I think there's a real comparison to make between the two games on Sunday, right? Like the Chiefs get out to that early lead, and to your point, they never gave them the opportunity to really, really get back in there. Whereas the Lions, on the flip side of that, they jump out to the big lead, and then things just started to snowball on them. Like I think you really saw in real time there was just.
It's a funny way of putting it because last week I was like, the Lions are like a snowball. They get going, and then I use it as a positive, and actually, it's a negative.
But yeah, obviously, it kind of speaks to, I guess, where these two organizations are at, and they're just the grand scheme of things. Like one team with the championship pedigree, the other one trying to get over the hump, and maybe we take for granted the experience aspect of things sometimes.
Well, the big picture thing from the weekend for me, when looking at all four teams, both games, is the Chiefs are on another planet compared to these other three teams. And I think the Super Bowl we're getting makes sense because I do think the Niners are getting there. I think all the pieces are in place for like institutional strength and competency, from ownership to Lynch to Shanahan to the roster. But you got to do it at least once, and you probably got to go through the Chiefs to do it. So I think that's a good measuring stick. But to kind of all the points that you were just making is like, this Chiefs operation is world class, machine like exactly.
And that's now
and maybe we undersold that.
Yeah, and I think you consider
Coaching
this,
matters.
and again, not to keep harping on the Patriots comparison, but that's the single most important thing, I guess, right? Is just that ability to be that buttoned up, capitalize on other teams' mistakes. Sure, you're gonna get the one-off, the most talented team just ends up winning the Super Bowl or something, but I don't think it's by coincidence that you had that dynastic run for the Patriots, and then the Chiefs they found their way and they built this thing, and now they're in there in the conversation every year. It's you get to that time of year, and that sort of DNA, there's certainly an intangible element to it. If just on your toes, I guess. I think that maybe sometimes when we look at these games, we just assume talent's going to win out, and it's not necessarily always the case.
The only thing I would kind of even begin to push back on, though, and why I felt okay going against that with the Ravens, is that you think that is a team that is buttoned up itself. John Harbaugh is a respected coach, one of the better coaches in the league. Todd Monken has been in big games before with his offense. McDonald's obviously, a highly sought after assistant. So they've got a good infrastructure in place too. We've seen them crumble in the playoffs though from time to time, whether it was not knowing the rule book here in Foxborough 10 years ago, or Lamar Jackson going, completing 8 passes or whatever it was in his playoff debut. So I guess there were more cracks there, but I was kind of surprised about how from warm-ups on even, they did not seem ready to play.
So what is it? Why do they keep failing to rise to the occasion when somebody like the Chiefs consistently takes the other path and they are there?
It's just not quite good enough? Is that an oversimplified way of saying it?
So it's a watered-down version of the Chiefs?
I think that, or the Patriots or whatever.
Because this is the Ravens. This is a choke job by them, in my opinion, not getting to the Super Bowl. You have the quarterback obviously coming off another MVP All-World season. You had an historically good defense, as we mentioned last week. Every piece was in place for you. The coaching. There's no reason that they should have lost that game, other than the Chiefs are just one. They have they have some of the key ingredients as well, but they were the more buttoned up operation. So I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on what exactly it was for Baltimore and why this continues to be an issue in the playoffs. For me, it's I don't know. Maybe it's the way in which that offense operates. What the ceiling is. But there's also there's a floor there, and when you get into these games, they tighten up a bit in the playoffs. You're facing much better defenses. It's just if they can't play their game, it can turn a little bit ugly.
Yeah, and
if the explosive plays aren't there and Lamar's not running for north of 100 yards, it's just.
There's a point. There's a chance
bottom falls out.
There's a chance I'm regurgitating the points that you just made, but because I was looking something up. Or maybe I'm just reinforcing a point. That kind of stuff is harder to depend on in the playoffs.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know Mike Lombardi has this thing. He says, can you play left-handed? And that's even more. It's even more necessary in the playoffs. And so when you're not getting chunk plays on basically just chuck it, or let Lamar run around until he gets 42 yards. Now you've got to be more methodical. Now you have to kind of play within your system and kind of go from there. The thing with that though is again, another guy we've mentioned in the past, Warren Sharp made it admittedly, credit where credit's due. Good point. Kind of pointing at the fact that they just completely abandoned their offense. They didn't run the ball at all in early downs, and it's not we talked about how good the Chiefs looked in the first half. It's not like it was 30-0 at halftime, and you just had to come out and chuck. They just puzzling kind of how they got away
to run the ball in the fourth quarter,
which maybe does
never
speak
really did it
to their thing is they're completely front running. Maybe they don't get as much. We talk about the 49ers kind of in a similar boat, but maybe they are far more, in that lane, and I think. They've kind of always been like that. You win a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. No disrespect to him, but that was more the defense back then. And if you can't go out and bully teams, then what are you going to do? I do think, as a quick tangent, non sequitur, I guess this is not completely not. The Ravens, as an organization, act like they've won as many Super Bowls as the Patriots and Chiefs combined. I'm so sick of turning on a Ravens playoff game, and it's, there's Ray Lewis, there's Terrell Suggs. I mean, at this point, bring out Ray Rice. Like, once Joe Flacco hangs him up, I'm sure he'll be like, it's just, they won, 2 Super Bowls in the last 25 years? That's something.
We're getting to a point where they're known more for their playoff futility than
I guess that's
their Super Bowl prowess.
Right. That's I think the point that probably needs to be made. So,
one other thing on Lamar, though,
is
Lamar. Relative to Patrick Mahomes, like, this is one thing that really stood out to me, like the difference in those two quarterbacks, is that Patrick Mahomes' awareness is like off the charts. His ability is very, again, Tom Brady-esque of living to see another day, like whether it's just throwing the ball away, and whereas Lamar, it feels like he's constantly in pursuit of that big play, sometimes to his detriment in games like this, like taking a bad sack.
That interception
the interception is just like,
it wasn't at a point where you needed to throw into triple coverage in the end zone.
So like that one play in and of itself is like, okay, well, that's a Lamar Jackson play. That's not a Patrick Mahomes play.
Yeah.
And I know it's a very simple way of looking at it, but like, there's one quarterback in that game who's always in control of the game, and there's another one who, and I think very highly of Lamar. Yeah. Like, I think he's almost as legit as they come. But there are just sort of those lapses here and there where it's like, maybe you're trying to do a little too much when the situation doesn't necessarily call for it.
And to connect the two ideas, it's not that Mahomes scrambles around, has a presence in the pocket and then throws it off his back foot 80 yards and it's
sure,
it's 6 yards.
He'll do that occasionally, but that's not. But that's not the separator.
It's a 5 or 6 yard check down on 2nd and 9 that puts you in 3rd and 3, as opposed to taking a sack, throwing it into coverage, or even just throwing it away. Like, his floor is so high and his ceiling is high, which is, I guess, how you become literally the best player in the league.
Yeah,
but he's so locked in this time of year, and I think that's kind of talking about what we were saying before, where it's like you're going to be put in spots where there's adversity, or you're not going to be able to do what you want to do in your play your play script or your game plan, and you've got to make an audible, no pun intended, and like, can you play a different way? And I think he's as good as that as anybody else has ever been.
Yeah, we really saw the ebbs and flows of the Lamar Jackson experience really in that game, right?
Yeah.
Even the touchdown to Zay Flowers, like, just an amazing play that you're able to eventually get points there.
Yep.
But that kind of goes like what you were saying, where sometimes, like, it's like that ability is what separates him from a lot of quarterbacks, but it's also that ability that sometimes probably gets in the way of him making a smart decision, whether it be checking it down for 3-4 yards or throwing it away, or like there was one sack that he took behind the line of scrimmage that there was no reason. You just flick it out of bounds at that point. But and that created, I think it was a 4th down, that a 4th and 1 turned into a 4th and 3. And it's like, it's a big difference.
It's a huge difference,
as
we'll get to. With Lamar, over under for his career, 0.5 Super Bowl wins.
I think he'll get one. I truly thought that this would be the year. I mean, he's how old is he?
47 years old.
Yeah, he's 108. Let's see.
27.
He's got faster internet speed. 27.
Just turned 27.
Yeah. There's a lot of runway left. And I mean, it's a team that's more often not going to be in there. It's just, can they get over the hump? Like, it only has to happen once.
If I had to bet on it, I would bet under, which isn't a reflection necessarily of him.
The difficulty of winning a Super Bowl.
The difficulty of winning a Super Bowl. And the thought or the feeling that they squandered their best opportunity of the Lamar Jackson era this year. We talked last week about how they've been historically dominant for the entire regular season. They bullied people. They were probably, at least in terms of what they were able to accomplish and have success with, they were the best team in the NFL from the jump, basically. They got really lucky, too, at certain points where Joe Burrow gets hurt or Aaron Rodgers gets hurt or, I don't,
This is probably
Justin Herbert and the Chargers stink, and now here comes Jim Harbaugh. Like
the Chiefs, this could be the most vulnerable the Chiefs are for a while. That defense is so young that their window's wide open.
It's a super young, cheap offense with a great, defense with a great infrastructure and the best quarterback on the planet. I'll take my chances of the Chiefs going forward any day of the week. Like, it's never going to be this easy, I don't think. And sure, maybe he comes back and wins this year or next year or the year after or whatever. Like, he's talented enough. They're good enough. Like, they can win it. I just am betting against it from a number standpoint, and just the fact that it's not getting any easier in that conference or that division even.
The Chiefs aren't going anywhere.
No.
Strap in, because this is we're going to be having these conversations for a long time.
Yeah. it's kind of sick. Unless Andy Reid retires, which is something we haven't really talked about yet, but maybe that's something to kind of get into next week. Anything else from the AFC Championship?
No, nothing that we can't shoehorn into the Super Bowl talk itself.
So 49ers win the NFC Championship. They beat the Lions. Lions were up, 24-7 at one point in that game. Was that the score at the half? Was it 24-7 at halftime? I was doing dishes, so...
They were up 24-10 in the third quarter.
Let's just say, for argument's sake, it was fairly one-sided. That's all I meant. Yeah. Anyway, the Lions completely collapsed in just peak.
Yeah, it is 24-7. Because they took the that's correct. Field goal.
Yes, yeah.
To put them up 3 scores.
Sure. So, and then the 49ers.
Which is interesting in hindsight that they made that decision based on a decision that they later made in the third quarter, which we'll get into. But.
So there's a lot to kind of chew on here from a very basic question. Do the 49ers win the NFC Championship game or do the Lions lose it? Coming up next on The Spread. But I think it's a fair way to frame the question and kind of dive into stuff. So do you want to put it, is there a blame pie? Is there a...
well, to just answer that question, I think the Lions just handed it to them.
Not for the reasons people are arguing, in my opinion. But I
agree. Well, so I'll hear you out.
They didn't make a goddamn play in the second half. Like
the Lions?
Yeah. We can talk about, we will talk about the Dan Campbell stuff until you're blue in the face. But at a certain point, the dude running wide open's got to catch the ball. Or the quarterback and the running back can't get screwed up on a handoff and give the ball right in back to a team that's thriving and striving. And they made so many boneheaded decisions on the actual field with the football players who get paid very handsomely to win the football games.
Yeah. I think that applies to the defensive side too. So I'm with you on that because, how many plays did Brock Purdy break free and very slippery in the pocket?
60 yards.
And so nothing that the 49ers really did offensively to get back in that game felt like it was, it wasn't like they were methodically marching down the field. Like they were just a lot of
taking in what they got.
Broken plays. Just the flip over, the line of scrimmage, the batted pass, down near the goal line. Everything just started to go back to the snowball analogy. Everything just was going in the 49ers' favor and going against the Lions at that point. And I feel like that they put themselves in a position for that to happen. Because that game they had that game, and it just, once one thing went wrong, the floodgates open.
Yeah, which I think is...
Because I don't think the Niners look good at all.
No.
Nothing they really did impress me.
The first half was a complete embarrassment. And you could see, I'm actually shocked that they came back and won that game. Not because the lead was insurmountable necessarily. It clearly wasn't. You watch some of the replays. I forget, was it the Gibbs touchdown? Going right to left, and you got Chase Young going for a jog. You got guys not pursuing to the football. It felt like this thing was over. They were just going to roll over, and it took just the slightest bit of momentum to be actually we can kind of win this game. But there's an alternate universe where that game ends up 45-7.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
It's just, it was a very unimpressive effort for 30 minutes from the 49ers. They kind of didn't deserve to win.
No, that's what I'm saying. Even amid the comeback, it just I was more fixated on the Lions handing them the game than I was on anything impressive that the 49ers were doing.
Right.
It's not like, the Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl where Tom Brady's marching them down the field and you're like, they're making 2-point conversions and they were making plays. Like this, I just felt like,
well, this is again,
the Lions they're doing everything in their power to piss this game away.
Not to keep leaning on this same verbal crutch, but like we'll get to it a little bit. I do think I'm not impressed by Purdy, generally speaking. I thought that was the most impressive thing is that he made a few really big plays when they needed to. So I give him credit for that. Like it wasn't like the Lions just laid down for them, but
I think they did. I think the Lions
got
shot with a tranquilizer gun.
The guy had to make a play. Go back and look at those. You got to give him some credit.
All right.
You want to talk about the coaching thing?
Yeah, because
I'll let you take a victory lap here.
Well, I mean, I got to take them when I can get them. But, I mean, that was exactly – obviously, there were several plays over the course of that game where you can second guess. But, that was a first guess in the moment. The one for me was when they were up 24-10. It was like 7 minutes left in the third quarter. They had an opportunity. They could take the field goal and make it a 3-possession game or go for it, and they obviously go for it, don't get it. Game change right there. That was the one for me. I'm like, even at the time, like, you got to make this a 3-score game, right?
No.
Why?
Not necessarily.
All right.
Which one was it?
They were up 24-10.
Yeah.
But 7 minutes left in the third quarter.
Yeah.
What was it, 4th and 2?
It was like a 48-yard field goal.
Like the 28-yard line, about 45.
I thought it was 48 or more because there was a stat I saw from StatHead, which is a thing.
It was 45.
Whatever. Then maybe I'm getting the mixed up. But Badgley is 9 for 20 in his career, the kicker, the money basher as they call him. 9 for 20 in his career on field goal attempts at 48 yards or more. So one of the major things I push back on is like this idea of take the points. Like it's an automatic that this guy's. So we can't sit here and have this conversation. And this is where I get annoyed by it. Being like the Lions choked in every imaginable way. Their players on the field did every goof, every gaffe they can make, they made in the second half, and they lost the game. But you know who would have not, you know who nails, no chance would have screwed up? Is the kicker. Like, we're just assuming that the guy's going to rocket it through. So that's where I have an issue is like, they've been doing this all year. Okay. So I looked it up. I guess I lost my notes. They, on 4th and 3 or less all season, they converted at like a 78% clip, which was 5th in the league. They went for it by far in that situation more than anybody else, except for I think Carolina, who stunk. So like, I can understand sending your best unit out there to do the job, and if the players don't execute, you can live with that.
See, I think
when the alternative is not, it wasn't a chip shot.
No, it wasn't a chip shot. But like, I think that the momentum that Sam sue me, call me crazy. I believe in momentum. I think that's a thing.
I do too. But if they get the 4th down, the momentum is back on their side. Yeah, which is exactly what Campbell said.
I guess I had more faith in their ability to kick the field goal and get the 4th down there.
So, sure.
In which case, obviously, you're up 3 scores. And like, so if you get it there, knowing him, he's from there on out, every 4th down on that drive, he's going for it, regardless of how far back they are. But
the problem was, go ahead.
No, I just think that the momentum that San Francisco can potentially gain in that situation by coming up with a 4th down stop, for me, outweighs the marginal uptick in win probability by virtue of going for that.
I will say
that for me was a feel the game type of thing. Even in that moment, I was like, this is a field goal.
We are 1 week removed from a team missing a field goal against the 49ers and at San Francisco going down and scoring with relative ease. Obviously different situations, yes. But it's not to say that they wouldn't have gone down and scored anyway. So like, maybe they love Badgley. I don't know. Outside in that spot, you've done this one thing all year. Don't change. I think I think that's where I kind of fall. Is if you're gonna be a Bear, be a Grizzly. And I think they won games this season because I said this last week. I think they won as many games this season as they probably lost or more by being aggressive. It's what you are. What message does it send if you get away from that in the most important moment? So and again, I think we have to judge the process, not the result. And I think it's just, I don't know.
So let me ask you this then. Then why did they kick the field goal heading into halftime?
So I was about to make this point. The problem for me is the inconsistency.
Yeah, he totally contradicts your decision-making process. If you're gonna take the points there under the premise that we wanted to turn a 2-score game into a 3-score game, it's like, well, okay, that's fine. Why do you want to do that earlier in the game when you also have that same opportunity to do it in the third quarter?
Yeah, I agree. No, knockout punch too. You want to talk about this halftime thing, and the Niners were asking to be put out of their misery.
Yeah. Yeah, that was if you did it there, and
now it's over. It's done. Yeah. Book the hotels. So there's that. I'm not saying Dan Campbell coached a perfect game. Far from it, because it was the contradictory nature of that, and where I thought they really, really, really porked it was down at the goal line at the end there. And again, it would have basically taken a miracle for them to get back in that game, or win the game, but to run it on third down when they've got 3 timeouts with a minute and get stopped at the goal line, and now you have to take one of those timeouts. So your only opportunity to get the ball back is the onside kick, whereas had they thrown in the end zone there, scored, or even an incomplete pass, they can still go for it again, and then they've got three timeouts left to maybe get the ball back and give yourself a chance. I thought that's where it's like, what are we doing here? Did you outsmart yourself? Is that a Campbell call? Is that a Ben Johnson call? I don't know. But I thought that was just a complete knucklehead move.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have a problem with them running down in that. If they want to run it on second down and you have 2 plays called or something and you're able to get up, you need to make sure you're not burning that time. The most important
thing.
It was 56 seconds or something.
A minute, yeah.
So I do think there was probably enough time, but yeah, you can't burn the time out. You have to. So
that's the other thing too, is that if you're gonna run it there, you better be right back on the line and be like, I know it's 4th down, but we're gonna throw it.
Which is why I don't like the idea of rushing a 4th down.
So maybe that's why,
if you want to run it on second or something, I could their actual willingness to run it, given the success they had running it, I didn't really have a problem.
I think Greg Olsen said that in real time, basically being once they got to 3rd down, you can't run it here because you're gonna for the exact reason.
Second down's the one you run that on, but. Yeah, it's.
But I think you can't blow that game without putting the majority of the blame on the players.
No, I agree with your initial point.
There was various 4th downs, both the big ones and the other. Can you make a catch? Can you block a guy up? You have to execute.
If you want to make the case that the players let their coach down,
Yeah, because I don't think they
gave them put them in a position to where, hey, let's stay true to our identity. It's up to you to go out and make a play. And they didn't make plays. And far from it. They were very, they crashed and burned in pretty impressive fashion.
It was very Lions. I kind of enjoyed it.
And then, why is saying, I think it was much more a case of them blowing it than the Niners winning it. It's just, I hats off to Brock Purdy for making the plays that he did. But there's some other ones where I'm just like, oh, man. The chuck down field where it's ball was bouncing all over the place and you end up.
I know, yeah.
There's certain moments.
No, we saw a lot of that the week before too. The Green Bay game was similar, where it's there's 3 balls at least that could have been picked that weren't, and you got to get a little lucky too.
What I feel like you're not a huge Brock Purdy guy, right?
No. I mean, you got to respect the ability to.
I guess my question is what's Brock Purdy's future? It's so difficult for me to figure out.
I don't know.
Is this just one of those lightning in a bottle seasons?
If they lose 45-7, like we were talking about, there's no way you can bring him back, right? So is it that much of a razor-thin margin? I don't know.
I think regardless of what happened there, you're starting quarterback next year. But I just
maybe
I have a hard time believing that what we see from him this year is going to be what we see from him for the rest of his career.
From good or bad?
Good.
I
I think by and large he's been really good this year.
Oh yeah, I think you saw between Debo and Trent Williams, like you lose two very important guys who aren't necessarily the most important players on the field, like that. Completely. Yeah, we talked about this. Like they're a fine-tuned machine, and you mess up one thing that goes, I don't know, some insert whatever. I don't know machines, but something in the machine gets screwed up. Nothing works.
Right.
I think that's kind of Brock Purdy.
I guess where
how motors work.
I guess when I'm like looking ahead, it's like when the rubber meets the road and you got to sign him to a contract extension or something like that. I'd be a little uncomfortable about what that's going to look like.
Yeah, 100%.
Because then if you're devoting all of that money to the quarterback,
then
that has the trickle-down effect of your offense. You're not going to have the skill players.
Bold prediction, he's gone no matter what because they're not going to pay him. They say, we just took Mr. Irrelevant, won a Super Bowl, got him to a point where he can make $30 million a year. We're going to move on and start over because we trust our system. We're smart.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that.
Anyway, Brock Purdy versus Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Is this the most lopsided, one-sided quarterback matchup in a Super Bowl of all time? There's a far more efficient way to say that, and I didn't.
I don't know. I got to go back and look at.
So I did.
Off the top of my head.
I did.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's. I don't think so. I think if I were to point to one, we had a whole thing. This is what I was trying to figure out what XLI meant. That's 41. Yeah. Super Bowl 41. Peyton Manning versus Rex Grossman. Height of Peyton Manning's Colts. Rex Grossman was a complete bum. There's that. Super Bowl 14. Terry Bradshaw versus Vince Ferragamo. Does that one do anything for you? Brady versus Goff.
The toss on the tape
is up
for
there.
That one.
Yeah, I know. And Mahomes versus Garoppolo. I think there's been some bad matchups, but in terms of lopsided, this one's near the top, but I don't think it's quite near the top.
No, I guess, yeah, you're right. Even going back to Brock Purdy's better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Debatable. Yeah. Theoretically. You're probably right, though.
Yeah.
The resume is already better. But like if you had a guy, if you had all things being equal, well, I was going to say, I guess in the San Francisco offense, yeah, you'd rather have Purdy, but I guess that's an impossible thing to try and conjure.
So we don't have to go back very far for an example of where there was a more lopsided.
No, so I guess it is interesting though if the Chiefs win, we start poking holes in Patrick Mahomes' Super Bowl record when you've beaten Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo and Tom Brady. No, they lost Tom Brady. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So there's your lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the other Super Bowl?
What? They have 2.
Yeah. They've been to 2?
No, they've won 2.
What was it? Oh, yeah. What was the other one that they won?
The last year, Eagles. Jalen Hurts.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's the problem.
When they're there every year.
I can tell you who won like Super Bowl 33, but it's funny, last year.
That happened to me. Like obviously we cover the Patriots extensively, being the New England Sports Network.
Get to that.
But like when I start talking about like certain AFC Championship games against like the Broncos and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of blend together. My recollection of the second Giants Super Bowl is like non-existent, and I worked that night, and I just remembered.
I'm glad you brought
Lamar Bradshaw falling into the end zone.
I wanted to make this point. What do you remember from the 2012 season AFC Championship game when the Ravens beat the Patriots 28-13? I don't remember that game at all. The AFC Championship. It was in Foxborough. The Patriots were up 13-7 at halftime. It had to have just been like vice grip Ravens defense. Flacco was 21-36, 240, 3 touchdowns. Yeah. Brady threw a couple picks, threw the ball 54 times.
So when you first started rattling off the years in the matchup, I thought you were going to the Billy Cundiff game, which I
remember that one.
So like that one I kind of know. Yeah. But I don't.
I covered that game, by the way, as a quick aside. He missed the kick by about a half a mile.
Oh, yeah.
I was up in the, where the press sits.
You got dinged with it.
And it goes, whoa, like way over there.
It's in your lap.
Yeah, pretty much. So it looked like me on the first tee after the winter off. It's just a hard hook left. So, all right.
The Rob Gronkowski kick of fate.
Whatever that pretty much was that. We've gone way too long. We have one more thing to get to, though. let's revisit Taylor Swift. Do you want to keep talking about Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
We took some blowback on the internet.
Did we ever?
From internet commenters. I know, like, the last thing you should do is giving oxygen to a fire. But I think it's fair for us to take a preachy tone and say, shut up about complaining about it. I think it's fair for us to kind of take our medicine and go through some of the comments, especially on Facebook, where the clientele or the user base tends to trend older and what's the word I'm looking for? Dumber.
Yeah, sure.
So we can run through that if you want. Like my father loves Facebook. Are you excited for Taylor Swift in the Super Bowl?
I'm still all right with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you one thing that I'm not looking forward to.
What's that?
Is now like the oversaturation of like Taylor Swift marketing endeavors, and like I look at like the American Airlines renaming their flights for like the Kansas City to Vegas route.
There's going to be prop bets through the friggin' roof.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Like that gets a little tiresome. But I'm trying my best, again, to go back to this new optimistic outlook that I have. That's not a reflection of Taylor. That has nothing to do with her. She's not doing anything wrong.
6:30 on February 11th. I don't care what they do with her.
Yeah, no.
The football game is going to take precedence no matter what. I have faith, even in CBS, who's put out a pretty bad product this year. They are going to keep it on the field for the most of it. And again, we're going to recycle the same points. They show her the box, they cut back. I mean, she's not calling plays for the Chiefs, for Christ's sake.
Nope. But yeah, the other stuff.
All right.
For 2 weeks of it, it's gonna, like your local sub shop, or maybe not. Yeah. Not our local sub shop, but the sub shops in Kansas City. All their deals, everything's gonna be what. 1587 with some sort of
89.
Yeah. 1989 combo meals.
Yeah. So. All right, let's just run through some great comments here.
Yeah.
Should I give names?
Nah.
We'll run through the comments. You give me your.
It depends. Maybe.
This is kind of like
depends how pissed off I get.
It's kind of word association, I guess. I'll just say it and let's just. All right. So she knows nothing about football was one of the comments.
How do you know? She could be the next Warren Sharp. She could be on his payroll. I don't know.
If it came down to Warren Sharp or Taylor Swift, I'm at least listening to Taylor.
Yeah.
She's been to more football games.
What the hell are you talking about?
She has attended more professional.
That's an assumption that
she's attended more professional football games now than I have. She's been on a field after a game. Sure. That's more than I can say.
She looks like she's got her wits about her when she's up there. She knows. She's cognizant of what's going on. Get off her ass.
She's probably in better shape than whoever left that comment, too. Someone else says, stop showing her at every game. She isn't playing the game. I don't remember ever in NFL history has any girlfriend of a player been on the screen as much as her. She is irrelevant to the game. Just my opinion. Don't hate me for that, is what they said. So they kind of say themselves here.
Whatever.
By the way, I don't think any NFL player in the history of the sport has ever dated the most famous person on the earth. So that's where it is, my friend.
Yeah, like who is like what's a comparable situation? Like when Romo is dating Jessica Simpson,
which is slap in the face of Taylor Swift.
No, I know, but I
know.
Like Giselle,
Gisele's got to be the closest.
Her global star power. But even then, it was like she kind of had that success earlier on, prior to that. So no, there's really no good comp. So this is an unprecedented situation.
Typical for NESN to post this. Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess so. We don't need to be lectured. Never a good thing for any organization to dictate what its customers do, which is somebody who replied to a video that was on their feed that they took the time to comment on. So
don't lecture us. It goes both ways.
Just scroll. Yeah. Just keep scrolling. You don't have to comment on everything. This is why we're in this problem as a country and a society. You don't need to comment. NESN's supposed to be Boston sports, not Taylor Swift sports. That's clever.
I mean,
I get New England sports for the record. Yeah. NE. It's not BSN.
It's also they're also very not. They're not up to date with the spread and the array of topics that we cover. We go far outside the Boston, New England realm.
A little bit of everything. The media needs to understand that football fans are sick of seeing her. Somebody replied to that, says who? And then the person says, guess you haven't read the news? What?
I don't know.
The news that 50 million people watched the game 2 weeks ago. Even more watched it last week. What are you talking about? Fans are sick of seeing her. They were sick of seeing her. They were doing the media illiteracy from these people is astonishing. It's like, do you realize you're contributing to the very thing that you're complaining about? No, obviously they don't.
Throwing around just the football fans
It's
too
so lame. It's like,
it's what do you
might as well be voters or like
if you're that much of a football fan too, you should be able to parcel through all this crap to get what it is that you want. There's plenty of second screen experiences that you can have, and keep a scorebook. Do it. Keep your own stats. Keep yourself occupied so you don't have to look at Taylor Swift in between plays if you don't want to.
This other one I will name the person is Brian Piccolo. So I don't know if this is from Beyond the Grave or what, but Brian's song is these two dorks are geeking over these two dorks geeking over Kelsey and Swift are embarrassing, which in a vacuum is not incorrect.
No. But sorry.
That's not for that reason. We are dorks and embarrassing. Those are non-neutral.
I think that we're very comfortable with where their relationship is, and we want to see it flourish.
Yeah,
there's no harm in that.
I just want good things for good people.
And to the point from last week, like seeing cool players do cool things.
Had a hell of a game.
His performance on Sunday, very cool.
Sick.
Even in the first half.
My guy says, I don't even watch football, but it's pretty obvious that the obsession with her by sporting outlets is starting to be too much. Make sure you don't filter out comments on this post. First of all, if you don't watch football, you can't comment because you have no idea what you're talking about. Second of all, I think reading the comment on the air is an example that we are not filtering comments out. So, who are these two and why would anyone care what they think? Stop. It will be great when football is about football and not celebrity dating. You had me in the first half.
Yeah.
We are. I mean, we don't know anything. But they still played 2 football games on Sunday.
Yeah, they still
played them. It's not going away.
And also, like, what do you want me to talk about? They're like, we got to sit here and
you want to talk about
X's.
Shut up.
Literally,
you don't care about
those same people don't know their ass from their elbow when it comes to like actual football. Will be the ones that be like, you talk about real football. Like, why? That's the most boring conversation imaginable. I'd rather sit here and talk dump about Taylor Swift's future, and
we're gonna get a little. I don't even know if I can read some of these. This one is just some guy says she's irrelevant. I think that's a name of a guy I worked with at Applebee's. She's irrelevant. Stop giving her attention.
Irrelevant.
I mean, she's literally the most famous person on earth. Somebody said, "How fun for you both." I don't know if that's us or if that's Kelsey and Taylor Swift. Somebody says, who are these douchebags to tell people what they should and shouldn't think about something?
That's a fair point.
Fair point. Former Celtics.
Well, we always say take it with a grain of salt. Like even when we make picks, we're not giving you financial advice here. So it's up to you to.
Nobody's making you push the play button on the podcast, the YouTube video, or the short. Chris Ford, former Celtics coach from the grave, also says, I hope Travis knocks her up on the 50-yard line at halftime so these people can cry into their middle-class pillows.
I mean, honestly, best halftime show ever.
I'd
rather that than
Usher. Would be a major story.
Yeah, everybody wants to talk about a potential proposal. That's the one. They're letting that sneak through the cracks.
All right, last one. Who gives
the second half adjustment?
Who gives an F about them or you? Fair. This. I can't even read.
What's the one that
this country's got more important things to worry about, like when we're gonna have a terrorist attack.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
You think Biden is in the Situation Room getting his daily briefing? It's like, I see here Al Qaeda is planning something, but if you see Taylor Swift get knocked up,
I unfortunately have other matters to attend to, so we're gonna have to stick a pin in this.
Did you see what Travis Kelce did to her at the 50 and a half?
Yeah. So basically, they're no better than the terrorists themselves when you really start doing the math. They're taking us down from the inside.
I mean, if your brain cannot handle the fact that 2 strangers on the internet had a conversation about 2 strangers dating, not bring that back to the potential of a terrorist attack in the country, you got. I mean,
this is gonna be the first episode that gets flagged as some sort of misinformation conspiracy theorist podcast.
Oh God. That's so bad. I will say, though, the people called us.
What about the guy telling us to eat a D? Spelling it wrong.
Just the guy's
D-I-K-C.
This guy tells us to eat a Richard.
Yeah.
It's like,
It spells it wrong.
all right.
Not to go grammar police, but if you're going to hammer home that point, you got to nail the punchline.
I guess he's probably trying to make sure he doesn't get flagged.
I don't know. I'm going to go eat a D.
All right. We'll be back next week with our Super Bowl picks.
Maybe.
A little more. Yeah, maybe.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's a good point. We might not have a job. I am Mike. That's Dick. We'll see you again next week for our Super Bowl extravaganza. Have a good weekend. Enjoy not watching football. Goodbye.